Hello YouTube. Just finishing up a little project we started a little while ago, but I got the urge to build a knife out of a file, which I used to do a lot. Well, we used to do a lot when we were kids. Of course, back then, we didn't know much about steel or metal properties or metallurgy or any of that stuff, so we used to just take an old flat file, grind an edge on it, drive a stick on one side, and we had ourselves a knife. But as you can imagine, that it worked for a while, but not very well. But essentially, I needed a little skinning knife. I didn't need a skinning knife. Let's face it, I got more knives than I know what to do with. But I felt like building one out of a file. And there's a couple. I'm not a metallurgy expert or metallurgist or whatever you call those guys. And I'm sure there's plenty of knife makers out there that know quite a bit more than me, but this is a good way to make a knife from a flat file. And this thing will last me a lifetime. But I needed something for skinning out beaver, and I had my old case trapper that I've had for, I don't know, since I was a kid or whatever. But these work a little bit better. I mean, a little bit better. I like a straight blade. I mean, a fixed blade versus a folder sometimes. But anyway, essentially, when you take a file, it's made of very high carbon steel, and it's very brittle. It works well. It cuts well, but it'll break very easy. So there's a couple ways you can rectify that, and basically what you do is you just heat it up, cherry red hot. And that's what they call annealing. It's an annealing process, and what that does is you heat it up and you let it cool off slowly. You just set it on the bench and let it cool off to room temperature. And what that's done is it's actually softened it. Okay, so then you can work it, you can drill it, shape it, do whatever you want. But it's not going to hold an edge very well. So what you have to do when you get your knife all shaped and where you want it, then you have to harden it. And that's done by heating it back up, and then what you do is you cool it off very, very quickly by what they call quenching or quench tempering or whatever the technical term for that is. Chad, Fat Man, you can help me out on this one. But anyway, so what we did was started off with a file, and for a skinning knife, you notice how this you want it to go. This is exaggerated, but you want the knife to go like this at the tip, and you can see how that I've done that. And what I did was I just kept heating it up, pounding it, heating it up, and getting it into shape with a hammer and a anvil.
May cup on you, that would be your chance. That's when you'd want to flatten it back out. Yeah, stop now, because it's so thin it loses its heat fast.
That's the thing about this, like you say, the thin metal, it cools off as quick as it heats up.
Yeah.
Sucker right off, right?
Yeah, you don't have to hit it too hard. Bing! That landed on something good, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's on metal, so.
Yeah.
The start of it.
The tang.
Types of metal. Like you were saying, hold it on the edge and then hit it at an angle. Start the feathering. Try to get it as straight as possible before it goes back into the fire. And this was actually the tang side, where you if it was still the file, you'd stick the wooden handle on, and this was the front of the file. But where this was the wider end of the blade, that's what I wanted to use for my tip. So essentially I heated up enough and ended up, cutting off that tang. And I don't know if you can see it, but this false edge I brought back about this far. So, this is, I don't know if you can see that or not. If not, I apologize. Probably not. But, and then basically, after I, hammered it into submission to where I wanted it, then we had to drill 3 holes through it, obviously for the rivets. And what we used was just regular brass rod. And what I used for a handle was a moose antler that, once again, Brian, has lying around. And we cut it into shape, and actually, that doesn't look very comfortable, but it really is. Square knife, it's easy to, square handle rather, very easy to hold on to, and I get a good grip on that thing. And I'm slow, I'm still working at it, but you can see, I'm just taking the sharpness off the edges pretty much. But essentially, once I got it where I wanted it shape-wise, and I had my edge, I actually took an old magazine and wrapped sandpaper around that to clean it up after I'd tempered it. And then I took a file. I used the grinder to some extent. To get the edge on it, but then I had to go over it by hand with a hand file to get it pretty much where I needed it to be before
Is that
I tempered.
cutting? Do you feel it? This
Oh, yeah.
file's cutting.
Dragging nicely.
Good. The grinder's just good for getting the stupid stuff
Roughing
off. Yeah. Hogging it down.
What I'm trying to achieve here is the higher you can get that grind, the narrower the blade, if you will. In other words, this is exaggerated, but say that's your knife blade. The closer to that you can get it, the easier it is to sharpen, the sharper it'll be, and the longer it'll be sharp. You start to go like this, and it becomes an axe. So what we're trying to do is just slowly grind it back. You can see I've got my line going here. This is good, but I gotta work on this area here. Get it up to about here, ideally. Do one side at a time so we don't go too far here as we get it. You can see I've got the false edge on top now, on both sides, like that. I don't know if you can see that. But now what we want to do is take the file tracings off of the top of the blade, and then we're going to put in some serious jimping on this baby. I'll tell you that right now. But we're going to take all the file marks off the top. Another little trick for cleaning up the side of your blade, as Brian has done for years. As you were taught this by an old Eskimo, you said? Roll up a piece of sandpaper over a rolled up piece of newspaper that's been duct taped together, and just wash down your sides with it.
Magazines work
Yep.
good.
And that, believe it or not, what grit is that?
That's probably 100 at least. I mean, pretty coarse.
It's quite hard there, rather.
Pretty close.
And I did that a couple of ways. I did it with a file, and I also did it with that 80 grit sandpaper. And believe it or not, you can put an edge on a knife with sandpaper before it's hardened.
Perfect time to test the rough edge.
You're done.
That thing's actually pretty sharp.
When you get that done, it will be sharp.
So once that was done, you can see I left a little notch here. Where I made that extra.
Okay, now that we've gone through all that work, we have to do what they call the annealing process, which is heat it back up, let it cool, and drill a couple of holes in it, soften it up, drill a couple of holes in it for the handle. At that point, we'll reheat it and quench it, temper it.
Harden
And
it and then temper it. Yeah.
And then it's a knife.
Yeah.
So here we go. Handle first.
Yes. Drum roll, please.
Yep.
This
For the
is
bolsters, or whatever you call them.
Roots, yeah.
Rivets.
So you can pick.
Thicker the better.
Center is about center. So we'll take.
You know the old German proverb, be the hammer or the anvil I must?
Hmm.
Do you know what that, ever heard of that?
No.
Well, the hammer makes quite an impression on things, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you spend a lot of time around a blacksmith shop, you realize the anvil long outlives the hammer. So be the hammer or the anvil I must. I kind of live by that, actually.
Make marks.
Yep.
Then it should drill.
Okay. Then I had to harden it, so it would hold an edge. And we did that by putting it back in the forge, heating it up cherry red, and then dropping it into bear grease. And Brian and I kind of made a joke about it. We actually I took the blade and I lined the blade up with magnetic north so there wouldn't be any, it was kind of a funny thing, but anyway. And we use bear grease because we're kind of traditional people.
All right.
I think you're probably good.
Okay. We got it magnetic north, quenched in bear grease, all the way down.
Yep.
See how much better that is in water?
Slow. Smells good too.
We're quenching it in bear grease as the true traditionalist, and we have our pan pointing towards magnetic north. So any magnetism in the air will bring that knife perfectly straight. Oh, Brian.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, once you do that, okay, now I've got it hardened, but now I'm right back to where I started. It's hard and it'll hold an edge, but it's brittle. So what I wanted to do was soften the back of the blade, okay? But I wanted to leave this hard so it'll hold an edge. So how do you do that? There's a couple ways to do it, but what I actually do is I'll drop just the edge into the oil for about 5 seconds and then drop the rest of the blade in. And what you've done is you've actually hardened the edge, but you more or less, this has come down at a slower rate, so this is still soft. And that actually, believe it or not, works very well. The other way to do it is simply, once it's hardened, what you do, when I say hardened, after you've dropped it in the oil, you'd actually take a torch, or you can put it against a block of cherry red steel. You can actually heat the back up, and you can actually watch that line. There's a little line that goes through the steel, and when that line gets down to about where you want it to stop, you just pull it away, and that's it. So what that leaves is a very hard edge that'll hold hold an edge, and then you have a backbone that's been softened, if you will, for the lack of a better term, that makes it flexible. So you basically got a knife that won't snap as easy. Like you can take a flat file and just snap it right off without a lot of effort. This will break, but it's a lot more flexible. So anyway, in a nutshell, anyway, it's a cool little project. Something we used to do when we were kids, but as you get older, you learn how to do things a little bit better. And it was a lot of fun, and I'll probably obviously make some more. But when you make something that takes you, I probably got, in all honesty, I might have 3, maybe 4 hours into this tops. But it's its effort, and I'll take care of it and use it. Hopefully skin out a a decent deer this year with it, and definitely some more beaver. But that's about, for me, that's a very good size knife for working. It's a little over 4 inches.
That's a fit. Make some potato chips.